September 17, 2012. When prison guards arrived at work, 132 inmates were suddenly gone, missing without a trace. No one knew what happened to them until they suddenly discovered a 21-foot-long tunnel and realized the prisoners had escaped. Here are 10 cartel members who made perfect prison escapes. Number 10. Ernesto Alfredo Piñón de la Cruz. January 1, 2023. A gang stormed a prison in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico, killing 19 people. Around 30 inmates managed to escape, including the notorious leader of the Los Mechicles gang, Ernesto Alfredo Piñón de la Cruz, also known as El Neto. This guy was responsible for some of the most brutal violence in Ciudad Juarez. 2007, when he was just 18 years old, Mexican authorities already had their eyes on him as a violent criminal leader. He was responsible for robberies, kidnappings, and gruesome murders. By 2009, his notoriety had caught up with him, and he was finally identified, arrested, and sentenced to 223 years in prison. But El Neto decided he wasn't going down without a fight. 2010, just a day before his sentencing, some of his henchmen launched an attack on a convoy transporting him to court. However, their plan failed, and the boss himself got wounded. August 2022, a chaotic riot occurred at the prison where he was held. Not only that, but there were also coordinated shootouts and arson attacks all across the city. The goal? To prevent El Neto from being transferred to a more secure federal prison. The day of the mayhem, known as Black Thursday, resulted in 11 deaths and effectively blocked El Neto's transfer. January 1, 2023, El Neto successfully executed his grand escape plan as his gang launched a daring attack on the prison. It all went down around 6:30 when a white Hummer H2 rolled up, killing a guard at the checkpoint by the entrance. The checkpoint attack was a diversion for a planned riot that erupted inside the prison. In the chaos that followed, 10 guards, 7 inmates, and 2 gunmen lost their lives. Additionally, 13 people were injured. Amidst all the commotion, El Neto and 29 other dangerous cartel members managed to escape. This riot was a meticulously planned assault involving bulletproof vehicles, rifles, and even a grenade launcher aimed at this state-run prison housing approximately 3,900 inmates. The attack and riot were believed to be orchestrated by members of Los Mechicles, who had one goal: to liberate their leader, El Neto. Los Mechicles have been suspected of working closely with the infamous Sinaloa cartel for a while now. It's not shocking at all that they're equally ruthless. El Neto was roaming the streets, and the people of Ciudad Juarez were terrified. Luckily, their fear didn't last long. January 5th, during a shootout, El Neto was fatally wounded by the police. However, instead of taking him to the hospital, authorities decided to transport him to a police station. This was done to prevent the hospital from becoming a target for Los Mechicles. Paramedics were prepared to treat the wounded suspect at the station, but he was already dead upon arrival. Now, what makes this story even more interesting is that when El Neto escaped, security forces stumbled upon his luxurious living quarters within the prison. They referred to it as his VIP cell, and it was decked out with all sorts of electronic gadgets, including multiple TVs and even a jacuzzi. And now get ready to be even more amazed, because El Neto isn't the only one on this list who has enjoyed the comforts of a luxurious prison. Number 9. Pablo Escobar. 1991. Escobar had a proposition for the Colombian authorities. He offered to surrender himself, but with one condition. He wanted to build his own prison and spend all his time there. Ever wondered why he had that smirk on his face in that mugshot? The Colombian government had no choice but to agree. I mean, how could they say no to the most powerful criminal lord of that time? Escobar was sentenced to 5 years, and he went off to prison with a smile on his face. He saw it as a way to protect himself from his enemies and his biggest fear, being extradited to the US. He always used to say,
"Better a grave in Colombia than a cell in the US."
The prison he built was called La Catedral, and it wasn't like any other. It had its own football pitch, a bar, a jacuzzi, and even a waterfall. Escobar even had a telescope installed so he could see his daughter's residence while they were talking on the phone. And just because Escobar was behind these prison walls, it didn't mean his drug trafficking network had to stop. Not only that, but his ego made him believe he could continue committing heinous acts even while in custody. And he certainly did. He orchestrated the kidnapping and murder of nearly 20 people while behind bars. 4 of these victims were viciously killed within the walls of La Catedral. Consequently, the government reached a breaking point. They resolved in transferring Escobar to a military prison, where he would be deprived of his luxurious lifestyle and influence. However, Escobar and his fiercely loyal henchmen weren't about to surrender without a fight. When the chief of prisons and the deputy justice secretary arrived at the cathedral to arrest Escobar, they faced fierce armed resistance, and a massive, brutal gunfight erupted with the Colombian National Army. Now, during the chaos, Escobar slipped away through this secret escape route he had built in the facility during its construction. And just like that, the infamous drug lord was on the loose again, and managed to evade capture for months. December 1st, 1993, on his 44th birthday, Escobar made a grave mistake. He let his guard down and spent too much time on the phone with his son. It's up for speculation if he knew this innocent conversation would seal his fate. The very next day, his secret hideout was uncovered, and more chaos erupted as Colombian forces stormed the building. Escobar managed to flee to the rooftop alongside one of his loyal bodyguards. However, it was too late. He was struck down by a fatal bullet. Some even say that he may have taken his own life, while others believe it was a long-awaited serving of justice. Number 8. Victor Manuel Felix Beltron. 2020. Victor Beltron, a member of the notorious Sinaloa drug cartel, made a daring escape from prison before his worst nightmare could come true: being extradited to the U.S. Now, the family connections suggest that Victor was heavily involved in the cartel's operations and held a significant role as a high-level drug trafficker. 2011, Victor's involvement in drug trafficking caught the attention of U.S. authorities, leading to his indictment by a federal court. Although Victor managed to evade capture for a considerable period, his luck eventually ran out. October 2017, Mexican authorities finally apprehended him at a luxurious residential complex in Mexico City. He was incarcerated in the highly secure Altiplano prison, known for housing dangerous and high-profile criminals. November 2018, he was transferred to another facility in Mexico City, in preparation for his extradition to the U.S. This prison wasn't as secure as Altiplano, and it was there that he hatched his daring escape plan. January 29, 2020, Victor Manuel Felix successfully executed his audacious escape from the Mexico City jail, along with 2 other inmates who were also awaiting extradition to the U.S. This sudden disappearance of Victor and the 2 other guys during a regular roll call freaked out the prison authorities. They searched the entire grounds, but it turned out that these 3 dangerous criminals had managed to slip away without a trace. Rosa Isela Rodriguez, the Secretary of the Government of Mexico City, and Hazel Ruiz, the Secretary of the Penitentiary System, held a press conference giving details about this audacious prison escape. It turned out that the men's cells were unlocked, and they managed to cut through a bar to drop down to a common area. They used wire cutters to slice through the fence at the top of the wall and jumped into the outdoor jail yard. Then they grabbed a ladder and climbed up a wall, cutting through more wire to get to a vehicle on the other side. The vehicle was still within the prison's security perimeter, and when it went through a guarded exit, it wasn't even opened as it should have been according to the rules. The guards that were driving the van had been ordered to take another prisoner to the hospital, and the city surveillance cameras caught the van heading in that direction. However, they missed capturing the moment when the prisoners actually got out of the van. I can't help but wonder how on earth they managed to pull that off, but we're sure there's a lot of bribery and maybe turning a blind eye. Victor Manuel Felix Beltron is still at large to this very day. Number 7. Edgar Valdez Villarreal. Known as La Barbie, Edgar Valdez Villarreal is a vicious drug lord and a high-ranking lieutenant of the Beltron Leyva cartel. He's also the leader of Los Negros, an enforcement squad notorious for its involvement in drug trafficking, extortion, and brutal violent activities. 2009, after the death of Arturo Beltran Leyva, the cartel's leader, a power struggle erupted within the organization. Driven by ambition and determination, Valdez fought fiercely to seize control, igniting this bloody gang war. During this period, more than 150 people lost their lives, as Valdez's gang resorted to brutal and shocking methods, including videotape torture and beheadings of rival cartel members. However, his reign as a powerful drug lord was short-lived. August 30th, 2010. Edgar was apprehended by Mexican federal police at a secluded hideout near Mexico City. September 30th, 2015. Due to his involvement in drug trafficking and a string of crimes, it was decided that Valdez would face the consequences in the U.S. He was extradited and sentenced to 49 years in the high-security federal prison, USP Coleman II, located in Florida. Now, here's where things get interesting. Edgar's release date is not until July 27, 2056. However, something shocking occurred when he was supposed to be securely locked away behind bars. November 30th, 2022. The name Edgar Valdez Villarreal mysteriously vanished from the Federal Bureau of Prisons website, and instead it was replaced with the alarming status of not in BOP custody. This unexpected turn of events raised eyebrows and prompted the highest levels of the Mexican government to question why Valdez was no longer under the BOP's watchful eye. Some experts on the Mexican cartels are speculating that Valdez Villarreal might have struck a deal with federal authorities. A spokesperson from the BOP declined to disclose the reasons behind his absence from federal custody, vaguely mentioning that various factors could be involved. Inmates may be temporarily relocated for court hearings, medical treatments, or unspecified other reasons. Now we just want to know what these other reasons might be. Swirling rumors are suggesting that Edgar may have successfully escaped from the max security prison. If that turns out to be true, it would be an astonishing development, considering the high level of security at that facility where he was incarcerated. Such an escape would have required diligent planning and coordination, and it would undoubtedly be a major embarrassment for the federal correctional system and the entire U.S. government. Would you be surprised if they were trying to keep it under wraps? February 2023. Edgar Valdez Villarreal was returned to the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Nobody knows for sure whether he was recaptured or if the secret deal he allegedly struck with the authorities went sour. Number 6. Jose Artemio Maldonado Mejia. December 1st, 2021. A gang pulls off a daring prison break in the central Mexican state of Hidalgo. They used a jerry-rigged truck as a battering ram and set off car bombs to create chaos. The main target of this highly coordinated escape was Jose Artemio Maldonado, the leader of a violent kidnapping and fuel theft ring. This man, aka El Michoacano, is believed to be the big boss of the Pueblos Unidos gang in Hidalgo. Security footage would later reveal the audacious plan. A truck equipped with some kind of makeshift metal plow crashes through a garage door in the prison in Tula around 4 a.m. Once inside, armed individuals threatened the guards, who were left with no choice but to release the inmates. 9 prisoners, all reportedly members of the Pueblos Unidos gang, escaped in 6 separate getaway vehicles. As they sped away, 2 car bombs exploded in different parts of the city. It seems these explosions were meant as a diversion, while the escapees and their accomplices engaged in intense shootouts with the police. In another part of the city, a 3rd car was discovered with explosives that may have malfunctioned. Additionally, tire spikes were found on the roads leading to the prison, clearly intended to prevent police from reaching the scene of the escape. The prison break sent shockwaves through the local community, leaving them fearful of these escapees who are now out on the loose, and they had every reason to be. January 2019, a horrifying explosion occurred about 10 miles outside of Tula, resulting in the tragic deaths of 137 people. This incident was caused by a failed fuel robbery attempt. The culprits had illegally tapped into one of Mexico's most important oil pipelines, which connects Tula's large refinery to the Gulf Coast. For hours, oil spilled near the town of Tualhuelipan. enticing locals to gather the seemingly free gasoline. Tragically, the situation turned deadly when the fuel ignited, creating a massive fireball. It is believed that Pueblos Unidos, led by Maldonado, were responsible for the robbery that led to this catastrophic event. Before the prison break, Maldonado had been arrested in November of the same year. He faced charges of murder and kidnapping and was subsequently transferred to Tula Prison in Hidalgo. To this day, Maldonado remains at large, and if you thought his prison escape was daring, wait until you hear this next one. Number 5. Jose Alfredo Hernandez Campos. July 12, 2021. The Mexican police's elite forces apprehended Jose Alfredo Hernandez Campos, also known as El Metro 27, the leader of the Metro's faction of the Gulf Cartel. He was accused of engaging in drug and human trafficking. January 21st, the Metros orchestrated a brutal massacre claiming the lives of 19 Guatemalan migrants who were shot and burned beyond recognition. Everyone sighed in relief when Hernandez Campos was captured. However, that only lasted less than 24 hours. July 13th, 2021. A group of armed men stormed the prosecutor's jail in Reynosa, Tamaulipas. They overpowered the guards, allowing them to whisk away Hernandez Campos in an ambulance before making their daring escape. This audacious mission was carried out after Cesar Premito Morfin, the leader of the Gulf Cartel, offered the police $1 million to facilitate Jose's release. However, the police refused. Well, maybe not all of them. The authorities managed to apprehend one of the suspects involved in the jailbreak. Interestingly, the individual had an ID card supposedly issued by the Defense Department, although it's unclear if it was genuine. Not only that, but the attackers had rifles and wore military-style camouflage. Later on, CCTV would catch the incident, leaking it to Vice. The footage reveals at least 4 gunmen wearing bulletproof vests and Mexican Navy Special Forces logo storming the jail, raising even more questions. The most important one: could corruption really reach that point? Number 4. Los Zetas. February 19th, 2012. All hell broke loose in the Apodaca prison in Nuevo León, Mexico. It turned into a full-blown war zone as a violent riot erupted among the inmates. This chaos resulted in the tragic loss of at least 44 lives, with another 12 people injured. Now you might wonder what on earth would cause this horrific riot. Well, there's 2 main reasons behind that. First, there's the long-standing rivalry between Los Zetas and the Gulf Cartel. The victims of this tragedy were members of the Gulf Cartel, making it clear that this was a targeted attack. But that's not all. March 16th, 2012. The Attorney General's office of Nuevo León confirmed that a total of 37 prisoners had managed to escape during the massacre. Among them was Oscar Manuel Bernal, also known as La Araña, who's considered extremely dangerous by Mexican authorities and is believed to be the leader of Los Zetas in the Monterrey municipality. The other fugitives were also affiliated with Los Zetas. So, it becomes evident that this riot wasn't just a random outbreak of violence. It was a part of a larger scheme orchestrated by Los Zetas. Later, investigations would reveal that the prison guards had allowed members of Los Zetas to infiltrate Cell Block D, where Gulf Cartel members were peacefully sleeping, armed with sharp-edged knives, stones, burning devices, and potentially even firearms. Members of Los Zetas unleashed a bloody carnage, eliminating their rival cartel members. An immediate investigation was launched to determine whether some of the 17 guards on duty helped the Los Zetas members by unlocking doors between the 2 wings of the prison. March 15, 2012. 21 former employees from the Apodaca prison were apprehended, including 3 high-ranking officials. And by August 3, 2012, 24 of the 37 fugitives have either been captured or taken down. Los Zetas are infamous for their brutal tactics like beheadings and indiscriminate murder. It's no surprise that people like them wouldn't just serve their time quietly, and as expected, this specific prison break wasn't their last. Number 3. Cieneguilla Prison Escape, May 6, 2020. 12 notorious Los Zeta gang inmates managed to escape the Siena in Zacatecas, Mexico, through a 50-meter-long tunnel. Shortly after this incident, the authorities arrested 2 prison personnel allegedly involved in that escape. One of them was a security officer, and the other was a getaway driver, helping the inmates make a clean break towards the highway. Also under suspicion of breaking these prisoners out were the state preventative police personnel stationed outside the prison. And what's even more interesting is that this prison has a 100-meter no-climb mesh. The prisoners realized that their only chance of escaping was to construct a 50-meter-long tunnel, which probably took them around 6 to 8 months to complete. To conceal their digging activities, they covered up a hole with a slab, mimicking the top floor. They also took advantage of the ongoing construction projects within the prison. The determination in these inmates closely resembled that of Shawshank Redemption. The prisoners successfully made their way through the tunnel and were picked up in 3 getaway vehicles just outside the prison walls. The guards stationed at the watchtower noticed the escape in progress but were unable to stop it in time, despite attempting to shoot at the fleeing vehicles. And what's even more mind-boggling, this wasn't the first time members of Los Zetas managed to break free from this very prison. 2009, 53 members of Los Zetas orchestrated a daring escape. Their outside accomplices disguised themselves as federal police agents, boldly marching the convicts right out the front door. When we think about prison escapes, we usually imagine 1 or 2 people making a run for it. But so far in today's video, we've seen some mind-blowing numbers, yet none even come close to what's coming up next. Number 2. Piedras Negras prison escape. September 17, 2012. Over 130 inmates made a daring escape from a prison in Coahuila, Mexico. According to authorities, 132 inmates managed to flee the Piedras Negras prison, located in a city bordering Texas. Their escape route involved a 21-foot-long tunnel with a diameter of 4 feet. After successfully navigating this tunnel, the inmates cut through a chain-link barrier, making their way onto a neighboring property. In response, Coahuila Attorney General Homero Ramos Gloria revealed that 3 prison employees, including the prison director, have been detained. Authorities suspected their possible involvement in facilitating that escape. The prison, which typically houses around 730 inmates, lost almost a fifth of its population in this incident alone. As expected, the tunnel hadn't been freshly dug. Mr. Ramos said it was here for a while, several months. Alongside the tunnel, authorities discovered ropes and electric cables, believing they were used during the escape. This prison is one of the larger incidents plaguing Mexico's troubled penitentiary system. December 2010, the only one that surpassed the last was when 153 inmates escaped from a prison in the northern city of Nuevo Laredo. In that case, 41 guards were charged with aiding the inmates. And since we're on the topic of major prison escapes and tunnels, our video couldn't be complete without this next person on the list. And number 1. El Chapo. If you were to lay out the facts of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's life, you'd think they were ripped straight from a Hollywood movie script. He's one of the most powerful drug traffickers in history, and it was also the leader of the notorious Sinaloa Cartel, which the U.S. intelligence community considers the largest and most powerful drug trafficking organization in the world. And he managed to break out of prison not once, but twice. January 19, 2001. El Chapo didn't want to stay in prison any longer. He'd been locked up at Puente Grande, a max security prison, since 1995, due to his involvement in a violent shootout in '93. Now, despite being behind bars, El Chapo had managed to enjoy some luxuries he had on the outside while at Puente Grande. Good food, volleyball, and even the company of women. This was all thanks to Damaso Lopez Nunez, the deputy director of security at this prison, who ensured all of El Chapo's needs were met. El Chapo showered Damaso with money and gifts, even providing him with a lavish house. El Chapo even covered medical bills when one of Damaso's children got injured in an accident. Unfortunately for El Chapo, Damaso left Puente Grande in the fall of 2000 after the government finally took action to stop corruption within the prison. January 18, 2001. To make matters worse, the Supreme Court of Mexico ruled that the U.S. could extradite Mexican prisoners as long as the death penalty wasn't on the table. Suddenly, El Chapo's worst fear of ending up in an American prison cell became even more real. The very next day, El Chapo seized an opportunity to escape. He was smuggled out of prison in a laundry cart with the help of a guard known as El Chito. Nobody tried to stop him. The drug lord would spend the next 13 years in hiding in the Sierra Madre Mountains, running his drug empire. While this massive manhunt made no progress, and as time passed he became more and more daring, even attending a family reunion in Sinaloa. However, his audacity eventually caught up with him when disloyal bodyguards tipped the police about his location. February 22, 2014, El Chapo was finally captured after hiding in tunnels for days. Unfortunately for authorities, his second incarceration was short-lived. July 11, 2015, El Chapo escaped for the second time. At 8:52 p.m., guards would watch El Chapo enter the shower area of his cell, the only part of his room not covered by CCTV. When he failed to reappear after 25 minutes, the alarm went off and the guards rushed in to check on him. But that cell was empty. They discovered a ladder leading to a 1.5-kilometer tunnel buried 10 feet underground, which led to a construction site. Near the end of that tunnel, a motorbike was found, presumably used by El Chapo to make that getaway. El Chapo's escape was a major embarrassment for the Mexican government. Within hours, the entire country was on lockdown. Flights were canceled, and soldiers were deployed nationwide, tracking down this drug lord. A $60 million bounty was offered to anyone providing information leading to his arrest. El Chapo once again went into hiding as Mexican authorities and law enforcement agencies worldwide joined the hunt to track him down. January 8, 2016, El Chapo was recaptured at Los Mochis, Sinaloa, after a fierce shootout with Mexican Marines. Unfortunately, 5 Marines lost their lives that day. January 19, 2017. El Chapo's worst nightmare has become reality. He was extradited to the U.S. to stand trial on multiple serious charges. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life imprisonment. Following this sentence, Guzman was transferred to ADX Florence in Colorado, which is known to be the most secure prison in the United States. Established in 1994, no prisoner has ever managed to escape this supermax facility. But do you think El Chapo could pull it off? Well, only time will tell.